This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got quite a stack of sources today, really digging into philosophy and science, all trying to tackle this huge question about reality and, well, where we fit in.
And the listener question that sparked this is just fascinating, isn't it? If human reason is supposed to help us understand things, why does every discovery seem to just, open up more questions? Like the finish line keeps moving further away.
Exactly. That's the core tension. And we're going to explore it by looking at this historical contrast first. You've got the sort of 19th century optimism, especially Hegel, versus what modern science is telling us now.
Right. Hegel's idea of the absolute spirit, it really assumed this ultimate completion. Reason developed, sure, but it's heading towards a specific endpoint, this perfect unity of God and reason. There was this underlying confidence, really, that everything could be known eventually.
Okay, so that's what we're calling the convergent model. Like, reason is on a path, getting closer and closer to a goal it knows it will reach.
Yeah, exactly. The unknown in that view is just temporary noise, something that hasn't been clarified yet.
And Hegel had that specific term, didn't he, for how you deal with that noise?
He did, Aufheben.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky one to translate perfectly, but the basic idea here is that the unknown isn't just erased or ignored. It's overcome, yes, but it's also sort of preserved and lifted up into a higher, more complete understanding.
So it gets integrated back into the whole.
Precisely. It completes the circle, you could say.
Sounds neat. Very orderly. But wow, that feels completely different from the experience in science today, right? Where every answer just seems to spark 10 more questions.
Well, completely different. Modern science, you look at quantum mechanics, cosmology, particle physics, it points to the exact opposite, what we're calling the divergent model.
Right.
The amount of stuff we don't know seems to increase, maybe even exponentially, with every breakthrough we make.
Yeah, that's what you hear from researchers all the time. You explain the atom, suddenly you've got quarks to deal with, explain quarks, and now you're talking about strings or loops or who knows what's next.
Exactly. It's not like shining a light that finally illuminates the whole room.
No.
It's more like the light shows you the room is actually this massive branching maze. Endless corridors opening up.
So the whole metaphor flips. Reason isn't this straight line to truth anymore.
Not at all. It's more like a complex, sprawling fractal, always getting more intricate the closer you look. There's no endpoint.
More detail, more branching.
Kind of. Understanding becomes less about reaching a final destination and more about, say, recognizing temporary patterns within this endlessly unfolding network.
I liked how one of the sources put it was quite poetic. If Hegel saw reason as, light illuminating the darkness, then in this new model, the light actually seems to multiply the darkness. The brighter you shine it, the more you realize just how vast the surrounding darkness really is.
That's a great way to put it. And that realization, well, it forces a pretty major shift in how we think about reality itself, a metaphysical turn.
Okay. So if science, our best tool for observing reality, shows that knowing more leads to more unknowing, what does that do to our metaphysics?
Well, it suggests we need to move away from a philosophy of fixed being, the idea of the world as a static, finished thing.
Right.
And move towards a dynamic philosophy of becoming.
Becoming, meaning?
Meaning existence isn't static. It's not like a museum exhibit all laid out. It's more like a constantly running factory, always generating, always updating itself. It's an active process.
So this is what the sources call generative metaphysics.
Exactly. The universe isn't just sitting there waiting for us to map it. It's actively producing new reality, new possibilities, and therefore necessarily new unknowns.
Let's place that historically for a second. Aristotle thought the world was basically a complete ordered system, right? The unknown was just a lack.
A lack, yes. An absence of information. Then Hegel saw it as this developing whole, where the unknown was like an imperfection that would eventually get smoothed out, integrated.
Okay.
But this generative view, it says the world is this endless network of generation. The unknown isn't a problem to be solved or a temporary glitch.
It's fundamental.
It's essential. It's the very nature of existence in this view. If you somehow eliminated all the unknown, the universe would stop generating. It would stop becoming.
Wow. Okay, so reason's job changes too then. It's not about finding pre-existing truths like digging up artifacts.
Not exactly. It's more like reason induces something. It interacts with the universe, and in doing so, plays a role in generating the next state, including the new unknowns.
So the world exists not just to be understood, but to constantly provoke understanding.
Yes, to provoke understanding,
Yeah.
and through that interaction, to keep its own generative process going.
Okay, that really sets up the listeners' analogies about how this expansion happens. They mentioned Minecraft initially, but then corrected to Minesweeper, which you said was philosophically more fitting.
Yes, that correction is crucial. Minecraft implies you're creating terrain out of absolutely nothing as you explore ex nihilo.
Right, like magic.
But Minesweeper, that's different. In Minesweeper, the layout, the potential for a mine or a number in every square, it's all sort of latent, preset in a probabilistic way.
Ah, okay.
It only becomes definite, decided, when you click on a square. When you interact, you're not creating the mine out of thin air. You're forcing its potential existence to resolve into a definite yes or no, revealed by interaction.
That's a huge difference. It's not raw creation, it's determination, forcing a decision from potential.
Exactly. And that ties into the three models the listener proposed for how we experience this expansion.
Right, let's quickly run through those. First was the code-generative model.
Yeah, which aligns with process philosophy. Basically, our active discovery or interaction is part of what generates or manifests that specific bit of reality, like clicking the square in Minesweeper.
Okay. Second was the realist expansion model. This is more like cosmology.
Yes, think object-oriented ontology or Miyasu. The universe is just physically expanding, creating more space, more stuff, totally independent of us. Our discoveries are just us trying to catch up, observing what's already happened out there.
And the third one?
The recognition expansion model. This is more Kantian. The idea here is that the actual amount of stuff in the universe might be fixed, but it's our understanding, our conceptual tools, our way of seeing and categorizing that expands. So the world feels bigger because we can grasp more of it.
Okay, three distinct ways it could feel like things are expanding. But the sources lean towards a mix, right? An integrated reality.
That seems most plausible. You likely have genuine physical expansion happening, Model 2, and within that, our interaction plays a role in determining local reality, Model 1, and the whole experience is shaped by our evolving concepts, Model 3. It's happening on all levels.
And the Minesweeper idea connects strongly to quantum mechanics here, doesn't it? The whole observer effect.
Absolutely. The classic double-slit experiment is the prime example. The key takeaway is that the act of observation, and we should be careful here, it's the physical interaction needed to get information, not necessarily a conscious human just looking. That interaction forces the system to change.
It forces the wave function, that cloud of possibility.
To lapse, exactly. It snaps from a state of many possibilities into one single definite outcome, a particle at a specific location, for instance. The interaction decides the reality for that moment.
It sounds almost personal, like the quantum world is shy, or it reacts to being watched.
Well, the child interest analogy used in the sources tries to capture that feeling. It's not about consciousness in the human sense, maybe, but about relationship or attention.
How so?
The idea is that quantum systems behave differently, more freely, probabilistically when they're not being interacted with, like a kid playing freely when unsupervised. But as soon as you set up an interaction, establish that relationship, they behave determinedly. They respond to the interaction, the interest shown.
So interaction establishes a relationship, and that relationship brings definition out of potential. That's a profound idea.
It really is. And it's not just some weird quirk of modern physics. This resonates deeply with concepts from Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhist thought.
You mean praticca samutpara, dependent co-arising?
Exactly. It's the core idea that nothing exists on its own inherently. Everything arises together, dependent on its relationships with other things.
So that particle only becomes a definite particle because of its interaction with the measuring device.
In this view, yes. The interaction creates a focus, a sort of density in the network of relationships, and that's what makes its existence manifest in that specific way. Quantum physics almost provides the physical mechanism for this ancient metaphysical idea.
Okay, if reality works like that, constantly generating based on interaction, it perfectly sets up the listener's big synthesis, the dynamic limit, the idea that we're in this perpetual chase.
Yes. We move beyond Kant's fixed limits and Hegel's guaranteed victory. We land on this idea of a dynamic chase line, and that leads directly to the 10% hypothesis.
Right. This is fascinating. The hypothesis suggests that human knowledge, let's call it dollars, might always hover around, say, 10% of the total information sphere, the known plus the unknown. So KK plus U stays roughly around 0.1.
And the math behind it is elegant, isn't it? If we manage to increase our knowledge by a chunk, delta K, the very act triggers the universe to generate roughly 9 times that amount in new unknowns, $9 delta K. So for every one step forward we take in understanding, the horizon of the unknown recedes 9 steps.
1 step forward, 9 steps back in terms of the proportion of known versus unknown.
Exactly. The gap is maintained dynamically.
But why? What's the existential point of the universe keeping us at this perpetual 10% mark?
Because, according to this model, the unknown isn't a bug. It's the feature. It's the engine of generation. It's what drives becoming.
So if we ever got too close, say 50% knowledge,
the universe's potential for generating novelty, for expanding, would diminish. It might even stop. So the universe actively maintains this dynamic gap, this 90% buffer of unknown, precisely to ensure the game never ends. To guarantee infinite intellectual adventure, you might say.
That's actually quite a comforting thought, isn't it? It avoids the traps of other philosophies.
It does. It avoids the sort of pessimism of Kant, who suggested reason hits a hard wall it can never pass. Here, we can always learn more. We're always making progress.
But we also avoid the potential arrogance of Hegel, the idea that reason can eventually conquer everything.
Exactly. It avoids that hubris. The 10% model gives us endless meaningful progress, which is great, but without the illusion of final mastery. The chase itself is the point.
And this 10% rule even gives us a new way to think about time itself.
Yes, the metaphysics of time fits beautifully. Think about it. The past is the 10%. It's the realm of what's known, recorded, fixed, understood information.
Okay.
The future, that's the 90%. The vast, constantly generating field of potential, of possibility, of unknown information waiting to be determined.
And the present, where we actually live.
The present is that incredibly thin, moving boundary line. It's the precise moment where our reason, our interaction, makes contact with the unknown.
Where the click happens in Minesweeper.
Where the click happens, exactly. It forces a collapse of potential into actual updating the known past fraction. So time, in this sense, is simply the movement of that boundary. It's driven by the universe's need to maintain that crucial 10-90 balance. Time is the process of creation that keeps the unknown just ahead of the known.
So wrapping this up, we've journeyed from thinking of the world as maybe a fixed library of facts to seeing it as a dynamic, living factory of possibilities, a factory that actually expands because we interact with it.
Yeah, we're not just passive observers looking into a static system. We're more like participants. Yeah. Players whose actions are induced by the game itself, a game that's cosmic, generative, and fundamentally never-ending.
And that brings us back to metaphysics. You said metaphysica just means the abstract patterns found across the sciences, physica.
And this 10% dynamic balance, this generative principle drawn from cosmology, quantum physics, information theory, you could argue it's the emerging metaphysics of becoming. It's the abstract structure of a universe that is constantly creating itself.
Which leaves us, and you, the listener, with a really mind-bending thought to ponder. If the universe generates new possibilities partly through our interaction, and if our effort to know pushes that 10% boundary forward, defining the flow of time, does your next question, the very next thing you consciously try to figure out, actually in some tiny way accelerate the expansion of the entire universe? Something to think about.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.